I am Jack Moore. I am the president of the Chamber of Commerce. And as I look about the room, I think it would be appropriate to acknowledge some of our special visitors, starting with our Mayor Dave Formosa and Chamber of Commerce president. Vern Leishman is here. Here. Jim Palmer is in the back there. Maggie Hathaway is here. And I think is Chris McMahon or Russell Brewer. Are they here? No, they aren't here. Well, they've got acknowledgement days. As well as that, the board of directors for your chamber. Again, myself, Jack Barr. I believe I saw Pam Trumpocker in the back there, your vice president. Our treasurer is Corey Carr. I'm not sure he's here. We've got Brian Johnson, Mark Hassett, Linda Young is here, Pat Hull is not here, Linda Wagner is here, Dan Aegis, Stacy McCausland, Isabel Southcott, and the hardest working manager around, Kim Miller, and her sidekick, Teresa Slack. When I say hard-working manager, she has been very busy, and to attest to that, I will let you know that the new members we have, and we don't need applause, I'm just going to roll through that we do have almost a dozen new members that have joined the Chamber to take benefits of what we have to offer. Victory Mechanical, the Music Room, Teresa's Day Spa, Blitz Beach House Creations, One Tree Farm, Townsite Brewery, Sunshine Coast Finishing Touches, Powell River Chiropractic, Green Pages Business Directory, and Service Excel Heating and Cooling. We thank them for joining the Chamber as well. If there is anybody in the audience that's here for the show that is not a member, please seek him after. She would gladly take your application if you could join us. While we are getting lunch served, and before we get into it, a couple announcements. The Chamber and Community Futures on October 19 are bringing what's called Job Fest to Powell River. I don't know if anybody of you read in the province, there was an article on that just the other day. It is a career fair aimed at today's youth. It's a rock and roll themed fair. They do have a band that comes in, they've got goodies, they've got giveaways, and it's all trying to get the young guys thinking about young guys and girls 15 to 29. Going through about 40 different communities. So we're looking for motivational speakers. Anybody that's interested in putting together or has something to offer for the career fair, again, talk to Kim, and that is October 19th. For the month of November, the Chamber will be joining forces with the local Literacy Council with their campaign on literacy in our economy. If you are a Chamber member, remember to pick up the new benefits brochure at the side table and talk to Kim again about any new benefits you might want to take advantage of. And again, if you have long-term benefits, discount promotions to offer all of the other members, this can be placed in the Chamber's benefit package that goes to any new businesses. The next Chamber luncheon will be, I think it's Thursday, it's September 19th. Speaker's not confirmed yet, but please mark that down in your calendar for September 19th, and we'll look forward to seeing you here as well. And I think moving forward, Kim, did you have a date for the Business Awards yet, or is that too far down the road? First Saturday in February. Again, if you've got your Palm Pilots, iPhones, your old-fashioned paper, notebooks, first Saturday in February, please mark that down for the Chamber Business Awards. I would now, at this point, like to introduce our keynote speaker. And today we are pleased to have the Knowledge Network, which is BC's public educational broadcaster. And they are in the midst of an extensive BC-wide tour from the islands to the interior, from the north to the south. In short, they're reaching into each community, and their goals are to meet with the Chamber of Commerce's, any universities and colleges, meeting with donors, meeting with the mayors, the film commission, the film festivals, doing a number of items. Reviewed our speaker's bio, and he is a very busy individual. I had to actually cut a few things out because if I read the whole thing, we wouldn't have any time for it at all. but he's not a man with a lot of free time in his hands, so we're truly honored to have you to come up here and take some time out of your schedule. The President and CEO of the Knowledge Network Corporation, since his appointment in 2007, has transformed BC's public broadcaster into a multi-platform digital service. He is also president of BBC Kids, a national subscription channel recently acquired by Knowledge Network, launched as a joint venture with BBC Worldwide Canada. He's the recipient of several international honors, including the inaugural Doc Mogul Award from the Hot Docs International Festival, and 9 Gemini Awards, which are the Canadian Academy Awards. Currently, Buttigno is president of the Academy of Canadian Cinema and Television Foundation, chair of the International Advisory Council of the Hot Docs Documentary Forum, vice chair of the Canadian Association of Public Education and Media, director of the board of the Vancouver International Film Festival, and a governor-in-council appointee to the BC government's Knowledge West Communications Corporation Board and federal government's Cultural Properties Export Review Board. In the past, he was founding chair of the Documentary Organization of Canada and founder of the Hot Docs Financing Forum. He was elected to the chair of the board of the Academy of the Canadian Cinema and Television from 1997 to 2003, and served as a director on the board of the Banff Media Festival, the Canada Media Fund, the Canadian Conference for the Arts, etc. Mr. Buttigno was born in Pordenone, Italy, and graduated on the Faculty of Fine Arts at Toronto's York University. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, I do bring to you Mr. Rudy Buttigno.
Thank you. It's amazing what longevity does for you. You know, if you hang around long enough in one industry, you get to do a few things. Thank you very much for coming out today. It's a pleasure to be here with my colleague, Aaron Alexander, and he's also my roadie. We've been on a tour of the province. When I came to British Columbia 5 years ago from Ontario, it was with a mission to transform the Knowledge Network. It was a digital revolution taking place. We had to change the organization to meet the new reality. I was pretty confident of the task that we had, as daunting as it was, but what I didn't know was British Columbia. I didn't know people. I didn't know much outside of Vancouver, and I thought that as a public service broadcaster, that was a really huge shortcoming. And so I made it a personal pledge that I would discover the province. And in the process of doing so for the last 5 years, really, I ended up making it my home. I remember with my wife in January, I said, you know, we've got 2 more years left in my contract. I'm wondering whether we should continue or not, whether you're thinking about Vancouver or Toronto. And my wife said, you know, I can see us eventually, you know, cutting our ties to Toronto, but I can't see us leaving British Columbia. So we decided just in January that we would make it our home, and I went to the board of directors and said, well, if you want me, I'm good for another 5 years. And so the board very generously offered to extend my contract well past my retirement age. So it's really great in this process of touring the province, of getting to know it, getting to know its people and what it's like. I love the place and now call it home. But before we decided that we would launch a road tour of British Columbia, because what we discovered is great a following that we had. This is the insight I came to. Those that know us love us, love our programming. But a lot of people that love us don't actually know us. They confuse us with our cousins to the south, the PBS stations, either in Seattle or Spokane. Sometimes the Detroit station, and people haven't been as aware as we thought they would be that we were British Columbia's public service broadcaster. So I thought it was important to go and to do a tour. And the idea of the province is to spread the message. Of course, our knowledge partners, the people that support us, know exactly who we are, and there's a lot of them here. Could I just see a show of hands with people who are knowledge partners? Great turnout. Thank you very much. We couldn't exist without your support. In the process of doing the road tour and speaking to people to really deliver our message, that's half of what the mission was. The other half was really get to know you, get to know your community, get to know where you live, where you work, where you raise your families, and find out what's important to you. As a public service broadcaster, it's important for us, it's vital for us to understand what matters to you, what are the issues that are important, and to reflect that in our service. It doesn't get reflected overnight, but over time it gets built into our planning. And it's been a great pleasure to know a lot of people. I'm going to give a speech that I've been giving for the last 20 months in a number of communities. Afterwards, we're going to show a 4-minute clip. It's some of the things we went to our presentation department and said, what have you got that's not for our fall launch? So we've got 4 clips. They're unfinished works that haven't gone to air yet, so you're the first people to see it. Just give you a little taste of the new season. And I'll take some questions and comments. I know a lot of people have to head off promptly at 10 o'clock, back to their businesses, back to their work. But for those of you that have a little bit more time, and if you want to hang around and chat afterwards, I'd love to meet you individually and have a chat. We're here all afternoon. And again, thank you very much for coming. Thank you to the Chamber for inviting us and organizing today. So, Aaron, I think I'm going to do this with the microphone on the stand. Can everybody hear me back there? You okay? Okay, great. So we'll try. So, today I'm going to speak about why, in a media universe that's expanding exponentially, a trusted space for independent voices matters more now than ever before. And I'm also going to speak about how I came to this over the course of my own career. I'll tell you a little bit about me as well. Now, you know, if we average 20 hours of TV viewing per week for 50 years, we'll spend 6 years of our lives in front of a television set. And that's actually very modest because according to a recent Nielsen poll, we're spending an average of 35 hours a week in front of the screen when we include the internet and mobile devices. That works out to 10 years out of 50 in front of some kind of a screen. So let's hope that along the way, there are moments for learning and enlightenment. And that's our mission at Knowledge Network, to inform and to educate and to broaden awareness by exploring the world as BC's trusted public broadcaster. Because British Columbians deserve a space free of commercial pressures where independent voices can always be found. Now this is a story of taking advantage of disruptions and turning them into opportunities that others have overlooked or ignored because it is conventional wisdom to do so. A little bit about me. I was born in the northeastern Italian town of Buttigno. As the post-war economy was in ruins, my father left Italy to work on a railway in northern Alberta when I was 3. And my mother and I joined him a year later in Toronto. And we were thrust into an unfamiliar world, a huge city where people spoke a language other than my own, native Italian. And the way I connected with the new culture was through television. Long before TV was truly educational, I watched shows like Roy Rogers and the Lone Rangers, and in the process, learned the language. I clearly was starting to become influenced by the culture as well. Remember the cowboy hat with a whistle on the end of it? Like real cowboys have whistles. It was through television that I pictured my father's experiences while he was away. He was a long-haul truck driver and spent a lot of time on the road. And old movies on television like Treasure of Sierra Madre let me dream of his adventures. They were also my fast track to learning the language. Now, my mother used to bring home old copies of Life magazine, so I could improve my language skills by reading the photo captions. And through Life, I discovered other worlds, like the Cuban Missile Crisis from the perspective of U.S. President John Kennedy, or a first look at space from Yuri Gagarin's Visor, and the glamour of Hollywood through Marilyn Monroe. And through these iconic photographs, I also discovered the power of artistic perspective. What I didn't realize at the time was that this mythology was predominantly American, not Canadian. In the 50s and 60s, television and magazines were dominated by American content. The stories I thought were my own were actually reflections of another culture. It wasn't until the 70s and 80s that Canadians started generating their own significant media content, supporting their own storytellers, and reflecting their own myths. And public television stations such as Tele-Quebec, TV Ontario, and Knowledge Network were part of this shift, and have broadcast content that has furthered Canadian perspectives ever since. because Canadians deserve a place where independent voices can always be found. Now, I want to take us all back to September 2008, to an event that shook the foundations of public trust around the world. The collapse of the subprime mortgage market in the U.S. and the bankruptcy of Lehman Brothers triggered a meltdown of the global financial system, and this led to an economic crisis paralleled only by the Great Depression, and as many of you know, the economy hasn't really bounced back. What happened? Was it the failure to challenge conventional wisdom? How could so much money be invested in complex financial instruments that few people understood? Why were mortgages given to those who couldn't afford them? And how did exuberant chatter in the media drown out critical voices that warned of impending crises? Last year, in our effort to promote economic literacy, we broadcast the anthology series, Mad, Mad Money, When Greed and Fear Rule the Market. Over 14 weeks, we examined the forces and players behind the near-death experience of the world's financial system. The anthology included Neil Ferguson's The Scent of Money, a primer on how the financial system works with the invention of money, banking, bonds, and the common stock company. The series examined the Wall Street firms that required the largest bailout in history, but it also profiled the legendary Warren Buffett and why he was one of the smartest investors and richest men in the world. How did Buffett avoid financial ruin and in fact profit during this difficult time? In his own words, you can't do well in investments unless you think independently. And the truth is, you're neither right nor wrong because people agree with you, you're right because you're facts, and your reasoning are right. And in the end, that's all that counts. End quote. I see parallels with our programming at Knowledge. It's our mission to encourage independent thinking. Like leaders we greatly admire, we share their belief that through independent thought, we can make informed decisions that are essential to civil society and functional democracies. It's our job to offer diverse perspectives, to challenge assumptions, and broaden awareness, because viewers deserve to hear the voices of independent thinkers. And because the economic crisis endures, we're working on a 15-week-long anthology series for next year with the cheery title of The Party's Over, How the West Went Bust. Titles include China, Triumph and Turmoil, and the Great Euro Crash, and Goldman Sachs, the bank that rules the world, because viewers are deeply concerned about their jobs, their mortgages, and their pensions. It was in grade 11 English class where I found my own independent voice. That's when I made my first film to take on George Orwell's 1984, a novel about a totalitarian society ruled by Big Brother. When I graduated from York University's film program, there was no independent industry to speak of in Canada. Nonetheless, I decided to strike out on my own, and for the next 18 years I produced commercial films and documentaries, and in the process, built a career. Now, coming out of school, I thought I had to be taken seriously, so I went to an Army surplus store and bought a trench coat. I thought that would help me get business, and I think it actually did. The coat weighed about 30 pounds, which is why it was Army surplus. I love that coat, but I also had great adventures as a filmmaker. One of my life-altering experiences was doing some work in Bangladesh. I learned in Bangladesh for 2 months and witnessed some of the hardest working people I've ever seen in my life. And there's one picture I thought you would appreciate in Powell River, the ferry service. So, I was thinking coming up here, because we came up, decided to drive up, and I thought, you know, the price is fantastic, it really beats BC ferries. The safety record, not so much. But you never have to wait, they'll cross the river anytime you want. Anyways, that was better than
You're allowed to stay in your car.
Yeah, it's amazing. But actually, from northern Bangladesh, I actually spent the better part of my time documenting the space program in Canada, the United States, and Russia. Quite a contrast. I worked on co-ventures with American partners to exploit the 65-cent Canadian dollar. Remember that one? When the Soviet Union suddenly collapsed, I created a partnership in Moscow to license the newly privatized Soviet space film archives. Now, when the first documentary cable channels were being launched in the United States in the 80s, skeptics were dismissive about their viability. As we now know, cable channels turned the traditional TV business upside down. That's when I sold A&E's New History Channel on a documentary about a scientist behind the Soviet space program, Sergei Korolev, the man responsible for Sputnik and the first man in space. In Canada, meanwhile, independent production was evolving into an industry centered on television, and public policy was being developed to support TV drama, but not independent documentary. That's when a handful of us recognized an opportunity to create our own destiny, and we seized it. We rallied filmmakers across the country, formed the Documentary Organization of Canada, and changed public policy on production funding, broadcasting, and marketing. In Toronto, we created the Hot Box International Documentary Festival to connect filmmakers with audiences. And we launched the Financing Trade Forum to connect filmmakers with broadcasters who could finance our work. But let's go back to the space shuttle era, over 30 years ago. I was directing a series for Discovery US at the time, hosted by Canada's first astronaut, Mark Garneau. That's a very young Mark, who's now a very prominent politician. He's got a lot of grayer hair now that he's a politician. Apparently being in politics is a lot harder than being an astronaut. After the Challenger exploded on launch, NASA granted shuttle flights for the next 26 months. With facilities and astronauts now easily accessible, I ended up spending a lot of time at the Johnson Space Center. That's how I got to working with Houston Public Television, producing a children's science series and a biography of Apollo astronaut Alan Bean. And over a 5-year period, I was fortunate to observe from the inside how public television served its community, how it promoted local stories and local talent, and I also discovered how much the community supported its local television station. And I left Houston after 5 years with the most cherished award, called Honorary Texan. Now Houston's Johnson Space Center's protocol officer had arranged for me to get this award. And at the ceremony, he said, you know, it took over $1,200 of paperwork to process this in the state. This was, a few years ago. I was taken. I could have used the money instead. But I was still beaming. I was really, it was an incredible honor. And one of my colleagues mentioned me in that ribs and said, you know, you can buy one of those at the local souvenir shop. I didn't know that, but apparently this was legitimate. Now, when waves of commercial specialty channels were being launched in Canada, I joined a public broadcaster, TV Ontario, as its first commissioning editor and eventually head of member programming. At the time, broadcasters perceived independent producers as adversaries because they competed for funding. It was my job to change the business model and the culture whereby independent producers became our partners. It was a win-win proposition that led to the commissioning of internationally acclaimed works such as The Corporation, Manufactured Landscape, Black Coffee, and Yo-Yo Mom, inspired by Bach. Productions that won Gemini, Emmy, and even Grammy Awards. Now, actually, Aaron, can we go back a couple of pictures? Just want to point out, I don't know if you recognize some of the people here, but it's amazing the people that you meet early on in your career. The guy on your right is Michael Ignatieff. He was a filmmaker before he became a putative prime minister. Boy, he aged a lot in that time. The other person on the right is Ian Brown. He's a feature writer for the Globe and Mail now. He's a host of one of my shows. Ian won the Premier's BC Book Awards 2 years ago for a novel on his autistic son. A very talented writer, a colleague over the years. And the woman in the middle is Louise Clark. She and I met when we were doing a production for the National Film Board of Canada, and we still work together over 30 years, and doing serious documentaries. She's had a recently, she's recently done a hit show you may have heard of. It's called The Real Housewives of Vancouver. After toiling away, it's Real Housewives of Vancouver with a big hit. Anyway, very, very interesting people that you meet and form part of your relationships in business. Go back, right? Now, when I joined Knowledge Network in 2007, the digital revolution had turbocharged the expansion of the media universe, providing an infinite variety of distractions, from reality television to Twitter gossip. To ensure that knowledge thrived as a trusted destination in this largely commercial universe, we set out to transform the public broadcaster from a single TV station to a multi-channel service. Today, British Columbia's Knowledge Network now operates 2 television channels, including the national DVC Kids service, 3 websites, a magazine, a YouTube channel, and Facebook and Twitter followings. We're also building a high-definition channel for next year, and we're developing apps for smartphones and tablets out later this year. Now, 5 years ago, we discontinued all in-house production to work exclusively with independent producers in British Columbia and Canada. As a result of these partnerships, funding for BC-based independent productions from the federal government's Canada Media Fund increased from $400,000 a year in 2007 to over $1.4 million this year. The commissions that independent commissions include The Edge of the World, about the early history of British Columbia. We commissioned First Nations filmmakers to document their heritage languages. We commissioned 3 different production companies to produce 50 profiling BC-based artists such as Douglas Copeland, Sarah McLaughlin, and photographer Fred Herzog. This year we embark on our most ambitious documentary commission ever. The emergency room will follow nurses, doctors, and paramedics making life and death decisions so we can engage British Columbians on a debate about healthcare. In 2014, we'll mark the 100th anniversary of World War I and the 75th anniversary of World War II with the Remembrance Project. We'll invite British Columbians to nominate their unsung hero for documentary portraits on knowledge. Now, knowledge also provides an invaluable educational service for young children and families. Caregivers trust us to encourage kids to build foundation skills for critical thinking in an environment that's safe, free of violence, free of sugar, and free of commercials. We created the animated characters Luna, Chip, and Inky to promote literacy, and we launched knowledgekids.ca so young children can have fun, learn, and safely explore the internet at the same time. Now, each week, about 1.5 million British Columbians tune in and click onto knowledge because they trust us. What does it cost? Our annual BC government grant works out to about 3 cents per person per week, or about the price of a small cup of coffee once a year. And that's probably not Starbucks either. A significant share of funding comes from the generosity of our 35,000 knowledge partners. Many of them are here today, as you saw, who donated over $3 million last year. And that's an increase from over $1.7 million in 2007. That's what's allowed us to continue to improve the service and to keep pace with change. And our endowment fund recently crossed the $1 million mark. It was launched 4 years ago thanks to a generous gift from Sid and Gladys Sharman of Nanaimo. The endowment fund is an investment in the future of British Columbia. It's a legacy gift that will support programming initiatives into the future. We have our challenges, of course. We set out to launch a high-definition channel for the end of next year, but we knew we couldn't go to government to look for funding. Instead, we went and searched for new sources of revenue and found them. Over a year ago, Knowledge became the new Canadian owner and operator of BBC Kids, a national subscription channel. This joint venture with the BBC has resulted in new jobs, is helping us with the launch of the HD channel, and reduces our reliance on government funding. Now, earlier I spoke about the great financial crisis caused by the unexpected bursting of the U.S. housing bubble in September of 2008. It's critical to note, however, that independent thinkers saw it coming. Joseph Stiglitz, a Nobel laureate in economics, had this to say in January of 2008 at the Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland. Quote, "As I and a couple of other colleagues explained how the bubble had developed and what its breaking meant, a chorus of central bankers in the front row chimed in. No one predicted it," they claimed. That claim was immediately challenged by the same small band that had been talking about the bubble for several years. But the central bankers were, in a sense, right. No one with credibility in their circle challenged the prevailing view, because no one challenging the prevailing view would be treated as credible. Sharing similar views was part of being socially and intellectually acceptable, end quote. Viewers trust knowledge to provide diverse views that challenge the way we think about current issues so we can make informed decisions. With your support, Knowledge will continue to provide a commercial-free public service that connects audiences with independent thinkers and independent voices. Viewers will spend at least 6 years of their lives in front of the screen. Let's hope that along the way, there are moments for learning and enlightenment. Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to take a couple of questions and comments if there's time, but there's a 4-minute clip. It's, again, we asked the presentation department. I don't think any of these are on the air yet. There are 4 rough clips of some of the programming that you'll see. I can take some questions and comments if we've got the time. And then afterwards, if you'd like to stay behind and chat, I'm more than happy to do so, but let's roll the clip.
This is a complete disaster. Death by broken neck, severed arteries, massive blood loss, blah, 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 blah. Can only conclude the deceased lost her footing and the death was accidental. I'm not convinced it was an accident. Spade a spade.
You kissed me back.
And I'm not here to apologize.
On your own?
Because I'm carrying a gun.
Finally!
I used to notice broken down shopping carts, randomly discarded by the side of the road, and always wondered why they were left there. Then I met some binners outside my local supermarket, cashing in their empties. They had the same outlaw energy that drew me to snowboarding.
So this is my life. That's where I stay in this tree over here. I've been there for 2 weeks now. It's still summer weather. Just kicked out of my house. That's how I do things right now. Live in a bush, collect cans. I did my leg in the other day. Shop garden. Got 17 stitches over there. But, you know, life's life. Everybody in extreme sports gets the bruises. You look like a bum. Everybody gets to know you as a bum, and no one, if they keep seeing you in North Vancouver, will ever hire you.
It's a tear down, Pratt. You can't save it.
What saved the remains of modern architecture in the West Coast was sort of like the wallpaper magazine revival that happened in the 90s.
There was all this talk about the democratization of design, and that design was going to change the world, and people got really excited about it.
There are houses out there that are really, really exciting and keep the spirit going.
There's a linking up of generations. There's this symbiotic conversation happening.
I think one of the things about modernism is whatever the materials are and the availabilities of materials and the techniques of the day are the ones to embrace.
It's not really about keeping it perfect. It's about letting life happen in it.
I think everybody appreciates that sense when you're standing in something that is beautiful and well thought out. Your life is better for that moment.
This is my baby ruler!
It's a new school year for Charlie and Lola. With new friends, new desks, and new weather.
My favorite tree! It's got new leaves! That's just what happens here. Everything changes in autumn.
And lots of things are different.
Our new desk is funny. It even smells funny.
A back-to-school special with Charlie and Lola. Everything is different and not the same. Monday, August 27th at 11 and 2.
We would open the floor for a little bit of Q&A. Anybody starting off? Yes, much. Anyways, I've got a couple things.
Yeah, sure.
You've opened my eyes to Knowledge Network. I've sat at home and appreciate that, whether it's Discovery Channel and some of the others that you've mentioned. I remember years ago watching Knowledge Network and appreciating, what it gave to my family and my kids. So what you're doing now, obviously at a base level, you're doing documentaries, definitely on BC, but what percentage of your programming is exclusively BC Knowledge Network produced? You've got the ABC Kids, so obviously a certain amount of programming is coming from them. How much of your other programming is coming from outside? And, multi-part question, are you also doing weekly series? It looks like one was almost a series.
Yeah, well, I'll take them in reverse order. We do a lot of weekly series. Again, British dramas are, a core part of our offering. That's where we can generate a lot of our partner donations based on that, because they're presented commercial-free, but also they're shows that you really can't see in their entirety elsewhere, and so that's really important. In terms of our overall schedule, in terms of children, we have 12 hours of children's programming every day. Again, totally commercial-free, and all our programming is aimed at one way or another promoting literacy. And that's where we do a lot of our joint buying with other networks in terms of original content. Some of it's from BC production companies, a lot of it are from just Canadian companies and international co-productions that we get involved in. They're very expensive because they're, with children, multi-part series usually are like orders of 26 and 52. And so we partner up with other educational networks, my former network and some of the other PBS stations and international stations in Europe. In terms of BC production, we just don't do enough. I can't tell you what the percentage is, but it's the largest percentage of the money we've devoted to original production. And what we do is we put out calls continuously to independent producers. Sometimes we have projects that we're working on our own. We're doing another suite of history films. We're doing another set of artist profiles and prominent profiles talking about what home means to them. Done in 2-minute segments that we put in our interstitial programming, because we find that if we put a 2-minute artist profile behind a Midsummer Murders or this new series, Miss Fisher, we'll get hundreds of thousands of people watching. Whereas if you put a single documentary up, you'll get 10, 20, 30,000 perhaps. So we're doing a lot of artist profiles. all that work, it's a modest budget, we're a very small player. We depend on other broadcasters to come get involved to make our independent producers whole. But we think it was one of the reasons, again, we don't do enough. And we'll probably never be able to do enough, but we're doing more than we ever did before. It was one of the reasons, one of the first decisions I took at Knowledge when I arrived there was to get out of in-house production. Because in-house production inevitably means it's one type of production, studio-based. The people have to live near the station. The guests you have to be near the station. The subjects have to be near the station. And so we thought for a small television network, we really need to take those resources and turn them into money that independent producers desperately need. So we are get involved in, we support the Vancouver Film Festival's Trade Forum. We do workshops around the province with filmmaking groups that feel that we can bring some expertise to help people step up their game, prepare their business plans, figure out how to move them up one step. If they're a local film producer, how can they produce regionally, attract financing regionally? Or perhaps if they're a regional producer, they want to go national and even international. So we do workshops, pitching workshops, training and development. We also bring in international broadcasters to help introduce filmmakers to international sources of funding. We've been involved with some film festivals in different communities where we found that there was enough of a critical mass of filmmakers that we could have sponsor the film festival every year, do a filmmaking workshop, and in the process do competitions and have independent producers produce programming for us. And again, filmmakers, a lot of filmmakers tend to congregate to the center, and our biggest shortcoming is trying to get filmmakers that live and work outside of the big center to reflect their communities. And that's been a big challenge. It's an enduring challenge. It happens everywhere. But I can tell you that the vast majority of the money that we set aside for original programming is predominantly for BC-based filmmakers and with Canadian filmmakers. Yes?
My question leads right away from that, or right into that answer there. Can you think of examples of rural-based documentaries that you've sponsored and bought in the last couple of years? I'm thinking of, the beautiful sunset scenes of ferries and things. So rural BC is seen as very beautiful through discovery, but I don't see the problems of getting onto that ferry or where that garbage is going. The issues that rural communities in British Columbia face. Can you think of some examples?
It'll take me a second to think about an example, but I can tell you that what we do year-round, we commission independent documentaries. In other words, there are the webisodes, the short pieces that we'll actually put out there and say we want to profile BC artists or we want to profile BC histories. And we'll put it out there and ask for independent producers to come up with proposals. The rest of the funding are independent producers where someone has an idea and they approach us. The producer has an idea, they have a business plan, a financing model, and they come and approach us. So we're not prescriptive there. What we do is we look at it as an issue. Is it an issue that's important? Is it important for us to get involved? Does it speak to British Columbians? And that's the way we approach it, because it's the filmmaker. When we get involved as a major funder, that's 30% of the budget. The filmmaker, the producer, has to come up with the rest of it. Now, part of it's from our envelope from the federal government's Canada Media Fund. It's triggered by it matches our money. And the other is putting together different players to make budgets whole. And those usually take, an original production, a 1-hour documentary, will take typically anywhere from 18 months to 5 years to make as they put together the budget. So we rely on the producers to come to us and make the case that this is a great idea, it speaks to British Columbians, we can pull the financing together and we can produce it in a reasonable time span. And so in terms of regional production, we specifically put out a call. It's called Take Me Home. It was, and we got some funding just recently from the Ministry of Cultural Development. It said, look, we want to take artists and well-known figures in communities, sports figures and artists, to speak about what home means. And we've just put out the RFP for it. We've gotten proposals, and the whole idea is to get filmmakers in the communities to reflect that community with a direction to be not Lower Mainland. Because we've got a lot of that. That happens. If you don't, it's sort of like gravity. If you don't pay attention, it's always there. And you really have to fight against it. And so this project, Take Me Home, is specifically directed at trying to get out and reflect more of the province. It came from part of this road tour. I was in Kelowna and met a bunch of people and realized that the poet laureate who'd opened I think it was the opening or closing of the Olympic ceremonies in the Winter Olympics, was Shane Coyson, the poet, the rap poet. He came from Kelowna. And I said, wouldn't it be great to get a rap poet to talk about Kelowna? You know, not a tourist piece that talked about the wine and the food, because we're not, but on the artistic level, to get a poet who grew up there to talk about it. And then that expanded to the idea of, hey, there are other writers, artists, and well-known figures, sports figures, that were public that could speak to the concept of home. So we piloted the idea, we got some funding for it. The Ministry of Cultural Development threw in $300,000. We threw in some money, and we're managing that project. And that's specifically to reflect BC. You'll see that in the new branding as well, the idea of reflecting British Columbia there, because I don't think we're doing as good a job as we could be doing. It's always a matter of money. Regional productions are the most expensive to make and they're the hardest to attract other funding. So we're always up against that challenge. And so we're trying in different ways. So we've got a long ways to go, but we're headed in that direction. And I'll try to come up with an example beyond that if I can. But yes?
Two-part question. The first one is, I just looked at your website here, and I don't see any place where there's a call-out for productions. There's not even a tab to press on, so it's kind of hidden somewhere. Like, where is that? And the second part...
If you go to knowledge.ca/producers, you'll find...
okay.
Oh, there's Aaron's working on...
Yeah, but that's not evident on the main page. And
right there.
Okay, and the second part is...
Yeah.
I went to SIFT in Ottawa, which is the Summer Institute of Film and Television, for those that don't know. And there we were told very definitely never to show up at a broadcaster with something in the can, because they can't then get the funding for it, just like Canadian book titles are regulated that way. So if I showed up with something already done, am I out of the loop?
No, we get involved in production from at the entire spectrum. We get involved from the conceptual level for development, to works in progress, to acquired films after the fact. In fact, our head of independent production taught at SIFT at the Summer Institute of Film and Television in Ottawa for about 10 years, and I used to be a guest there. And you get on an acquired film, you get less funding. But no, we get involved with filmmakers at every stage of the process.
Who gets less funding? Knowledge Network or
acquisitions? A finished product it just competes on the open market with all other finished products. But it depends on what it is. And if it's a completely finished product, it's one thing. If it's something that's a work in progress that can be worked on, it attracts more money because again it triggers funding from the tax credit system, from our Canada Media Fund, and. But it doesn't, again, if you have a finished film, and I don't know if you have one in particular, but we take proposals all the time, and again, producers or knowledge.ca/producers, there's a contact number there, and the best way, if you're not familiar with dealing with us, is you pick up the phone, and we have Patrice Ramsey, who's our coordinator, and she's there to talk people through the process. It's not that hard, it's very informal, and it's year-round. And, yes?
I just wanted to say that your program guide is excellent. News KCTS standing, and if anyone hasn't seen the program guide, please have a look. I love, and as an expert, we're really grateful that you have an expert program.
Great.
Thanks very much.
And I thank you for that segue, because we do have September and October's program guide on the side table here, so if anybody would like to pick that up, please do. It is 1 o'clock at this point, so we do have a little bit of housekeeping to go through. If you do want to stay and ask some more questions, I don't think Rudy's going anywhere for the immediate period right now. Again, we do want to say thank you very much to Aaron and Rudy for coming up. Specific gift bags for both of you, as well as Joyce Carlson and Peak, as I was coming in here, gave me a special gift to give to you. That is Party Your Berries Off apron. I'll explain the double entendre. So, wrapping up quickly, find the rest of what we've got here. There's just a couple of last things that we need to do. Again, thank you very much, Rudy, Aaron, much appreciated. We are going to do a business card draw for the free luncheon to be used at another chamber luncheon. Rudy, if you wouldn't mind rummaging through the bottom there and picking out a card. Okay. For the complimentary luncheon, we have. God, I hate this. Alison Boulanger from the Bank of Montreal. Make sure. Yeah, we'll get to that. As well, the raffle tickets draws. We have 3 $25 gift cards from Save On, so we're going to draw 3. Only $75. There's 3 individual ones. Picking the first number. Yes. The first one, you have a raffle ticket sitting on your place. First number, or the last 3 numbers, 361.
Somebody here does that one.
Empty here.
What do we do?
More.
I think we'll all split it.
Number 2 is 361. That's because you asked a question. Good for you. 317. 317. Good. Dave. And the last lucky one. You would call that out?
342.
342. 342. Before we close, are there any announcements, comments, suggestions, thoughts from the floor? Now is your opportunity, please.
I'd just like to tell everybody that Arundel Bed and Breakfast, the oldest surviving B&B in Powell River, is having its 25th birthday on the 25th. You're all invited. Please come and see who we are and where we are.
Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Graham Wozniak. I'm from the British Columbia Green Pages. It's a business and trade directory produced by Sunshine Coast residents. This one was delivered hand-delivered to every household from Egmont to Port Mellon. And this Powell River edition, which is due out in the fall, will be delivered to every household and dwelling in Powell River and surrounding area. And if you're a member of the chamber, there's a certificate over there on the table so that you can have a 20% discount. Proves very, very productive. And Lord, thank you. We'd be glad to talk to you about it after we get to that road.
Good. Excellent. Congratulations. We've got 2 employees going 3 times. That's a wrap. Thank you very much once again. And Rudy, you can have your lunch, but anybody else that wants to have some questions or talk to Rudy or Aaron, please feel free. Thanks again.